everybody. Welcome to PGCon. My name is Keith Fiske. I'll be giving you the features talk on 9.5. Let's see, who am I? I work for OmniTI. We're a full stack support for high traffic and website applications. We annually host a scalability conference called Surge. Got some coupons up here at the front for it if you're interested. It's annually in September in the Baltimore, DC area. So, and as most people here, we're also hiring. We're hiring pretty much everybody. So, about me, I'm the author of several Postgres tools, notably PG Partman and PG Extractor, which I've had a lot of people come up and talk to me about. I'm not a core contributor. I've done no actual work on any Postgres core code. So I don't have a lot of the deep knowledge that a lot of people that have done the features talks before have. So, but those people are all here, so you can feel free to go talk to them, or there are other talks about a lot of the topics I'll be covering today specifically. So let's see. Biggest question is, when is it coming? Just yesterday they had a PGCon developer meeting. Still a little bit up in the air. I think they're trying to target for mid to late October and hopefully have something released this month. I couldn't find a clear answer on what that would be released this month. Alpha, beta?
Alpha soon.
Alpha soon. Okay, there you go. So hopefully that happens. So let's go right into the features. Biggest feature that most people talk about is upsert. So the technical explanation of what it is there, optimistic variant of regular insertion. So basically, if you try to do an insert, it doesn't work, then it'll do an update instead. It's similar to merge. If you talk to Peter Gagan, it's a lot better, if you get his opinion on it. So let's see what it actually does. For anybody that's following along, if you're not able to see the command line from what I'm doing, if you see a little down arrow down here, for the slides, that has most of the code that I'll be doing. It'll be similar to that throughout the rest of the presentation. If I'm doing a demo, just hit down if you want to see if you can't see the code on the screen. So, first thing to show you, oops, didn't want to do that. So, this is the version that I'm running right now. So if I run into any bugs for Postgres, I challenge the developers here to go get a commit pushed out, and I'll pull it down and see if it works by the time the talk is done. So, but hopefully everything is working okay. So you see I'm actually running 9.5 right now. So first little setup here. So just have a plain table, has two rows, A and B with a primary key. So the first thing you usually try to do, let's see. Try to insert a duplicate value. You usually get your typical error there, duplicate key error. So what upsert will do for you is the first thing you can do is if you run into a duplicate, you just want it to do nothing. So you say on conflict, do nothing. The basic format for the new upsert option revolves around this on conflict clause right here, and what you'd like to do with what happens when a conflict occurs. So some first testing out with it. So the first thing you'd normally want to do, say you just want to update the new value, but you actually have to tell it what you want it to do, which columns you want it to handle the errors on. So it's telling you have to either give it some kind of which columns you want it to handle or which constraint you want it to handle. So we'll try to do that. Still not quite happy. One of the things that is now introduced with the insert command is you can now alias the target table. The reason being, and I'll show you a little bit more later, there's a special tuple available for trying to get the old value, and that has a name that could have some conflict with it. So to actually get the update done, there you go. So on conflict for the sum key column, which is the primary key, which we were having the error on before, what we want it to actually do is to update the sum value column and just add 1 to it. As you can see, I alias the upsert table to U there and use the U value right there. And now it put the 1 there. And the other thing we can do, this is what the reason for the alias is because there's this special variable called excluded. If you actually want to get the original value that you were trying, you can see we were trying to update column B to have, or we were trying to insert a new column with a value B with a value 10, but there's already a key B there, but we wanted to get the original value 10, so we use this special excluded tuple and got the original value and put that in there. So that's the reason why the alias was added, because you may have a table called excluded. So now you can alias your table and work like that. I think that's all my upserts. Yep. So yeah, reading some of the blog posts about it, people were, you can give the constraint name that you want to be able to capture, but it's actually better to give the column name because the constraint name could change, but typically the column name won't. So it's usually better to give the column name there. So next new feature is row level security. So this is in addition to all the schema, table, and column privileges that are already there. Now you can get down to row level security. Yes? I don't think so. I would be surprised if it did.
Also, will it continue executing that update multiple times if it continues to conflict?
No, as soon as it'll either succeed or it'll fail. It'll be either one or the other. Same as it's the same way you used to handle it before with a function and an exception block. It'll either fail or it'll succeed either way. So yeah.
One last question. What about
Sure.
triggers? Will it do an insert trigger or an update trigger based on which operation is done?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Well, oh, okay. There you go. Yep. Yes, it was. He was asking whether if something causes a trigger to happen, which trigger would fire, the on insert trigger or the on update trigger? It depends what happened. If it did, what?
It will first always fire the insert trigger because that might modify the tuple and then you might conflict with something else.
Okay.
So you always have to run the
Insert trigger. Okay.
Only after that we determine the conflict. And if that happens to trigger an update, then that's the update trigger.
And you're talking about before. I should have been more specific. You're right.
Yeah.
But for after, will it?
For after, only the
one
right
that's done.
one.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Thank you. So the next new feature, by default, super users and the owner of the object will bypass the row level security unless there's a new PostgreSQL.conf variable or group value. It's actually a session, either a session variable or it's a variable on the individual tables themselves that you can set the row security on or off. If it's on, that's the normal way users and object owners will bypass it. If it's off, obviously, then no row level security at all will be enforced. If you use the force, then that forces super users and object owners to have the same row level policies applied to them. By default, pgdump will turn row security off. If you'd like to have that enforced for the resulting dump, there's a new option for pgdump. If you have multiple policies on a table, it just does an OR on them to figure that out in the end. For creating new users and modifying role privileges, just like there's like the login, no login, super user, no super user, now there's a bypass RLS and no bypass RLS option for setting that. And as you'll see in a bit, you can see the row level security options just by doing a /D on the table. And Stephen Frost tomorrow has a specific talk all about this, so you can, if you really want to get into the details, you can go to his talk. I can show you a brief preview of it here, though. So see, I just set up a basic table here, And then I made 3 roles, Peter, Joanna, Bill. And right now, they have all the privileges on this new table that we want them to have and on the sequences. And we added just some basic client info into the table there. So, see, with no row level security, I logged in. You can see I changed my login. I'm now logged in as Peter. So I select from the client's table. I see everything that's there. So if you go ahead and add a policy on there. So actually, see what the actual syntax is on here. So see, I created a new policy for the client's table. You can say the next is for what actions you want it to happen on. I want this for this is all, but you can do for select, insert, update, or delete. And then for which roles you want it to apply to. If you just want it to be everything, it uses the public special name that I'm using here. The using clause is kind of like a where condition. So whenever a query is run against the table that has the role level policy on it, it's kind of like throwing that where condition on there. And then I'll show you later the with check is actually something you want it to check on an insert or an update or delete on the table. You want it to run that check to see if it passes that check as well. So you can have both the using and the check on there. So let's see. So you can see I'm logged in as Peter now. Now when I do the same query I did before, the condition is when the account manager equals whoever the current user is. So the current user is Peter. So the account manager, all he can see is Peter. Yes. I can't make this any bigger, unfortunately. Do you need the URL to look at on your own laptop?
Doesn't work for control.
Not for this, unfortunately. It doesn't. If you go, do you have a laptop there? You can go to the slides, and I have all the commands and stuff up on the slides if you want to look at it. So you can see I logged in as Joanna, and now all I can see is Joanna. So now if you actually try to do an insert, I'm logged in as Peter now. If I try to log in, or if I try to insert a row with an account manager with another name, it gives an error. It gives a policy error back. But if I try to do the insert with Peter, then it works. So now there's 2 rows for Peter there. So now we're actually going to make a new policy on here. So we want to actually allow the other clients to be able to insert things for Bill, who's the supervisor. So we had the same policy we had before, but now we add a check in there to see if they're adding the account name Bill in there as well. So you can see if you do a /d on the clients, this is what the policy looks like if you look in the at the schema of the table itself. So now if we try to so log back in as Peter again, and now you can see now that I'm actually able to insert an account name with Bill. But if you actually do look at the clients, he can't see what he actually inserted, but he was still able to insert it. So if I actually change back to me, you can see the second row he added in there. So, like I said, if you have any more questions about row level security, highly recommend going to Stephen Frost talk. I believe he's the one that wrote a lot of the stuff for it too as well. So he can answer a lot of your questions. Next big feature is the checkpoint segments option is now gone. It's been replaced by these 2 features, min wall size and max wall size. I thought I had a pretty good understanding that this was a good thing, and it worked well. Then I talked to Robert Treat, and now I don't know anymore. So from what I understood, basically what it does is it allowed, before if you had something that was doing a whole lot of, running a whole lot of walls, the number of checkpoint segments could grow larger. This max wall size actually puts a max on the number of XLogs that will be there. And then based on the minimum size, it tries to do a moving average to get the checkpoint done. And like I said, it'll only do up to max size. If you set these two values the same, you're essentially making it what it used to be like, but now you have a maximum size on the wall files there. Yes.
Yeah, one thing is the default for max wall size is not 128 megabytes. It was actually changed to 1 gigabyte.
Okay. If you couldn't hear him, he said the max wall size default is now 1 gigabyte. So.
How does checkpoint max wall size play with
Wall keep segments will that just goes through when the master is going through to clean up the wall files it knows it no longer needs. It will always, that's what wall keep segments is for, is to always keep that many around. That's so the slaves will have something to replay off if they need. They're kind of not really related. One is specifically for you always want to have at least this many around. Max wall size is it will never grow larger than this. So I guess if you have the max wall size set to something pretty big, but then your wall keep segments is set to something even bigger, I guess which one would override the other?
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah. Robert, do you know which one would override the other?
I think they're going to add.
They're going to add?
I think so,
Okay.
but I'm not positive.
It's better.
Andres is positive.
Okay. They add together?
As is frequently the case.
Okay. Let's see. Next new feature. PG Rewind is a new binary tool that Postgres comes with. Before, if you were doing a failover, you'd stop your old master, touch retarget recovery trigger, and then you go rebuild your old master and pray that your new master doesn't go down while you're rebuilding your old master. For large databases, you could use rsync, but for really large ones, even that was really inefficient because rsync has no idea of the internals of what all the Postgres files actually are. So PG Rewind actually knows what the internals of all the data files and stuff are. So it's much better able than rsync to get things back in sync the way they should be. So do the same steps you did before, and then hopefully things are working okay. So the only thing for this is if you have an existing cluster, if you want to turn this on, you have to turn the wall hints option on, which requires a restart. Otherwise, the only other way to do this is to turn the data checksumming on, which you have to actually do at cluster initialization. So you'd have to rebuild your entire cluster if you want to have it that way. So if you're starting off new and you want this feature, I'd highly recommend turning the checksumming on. Otherwise, you can just set the wall hints on. Other new feature, foreign table inheritance. So if any of you are familiar with the foreign data wrapper, which allows you to connect to other databases, and then the inheritance feature, which allows like one table to inherit the properties of other tables, now you can combine those two things. This is essentially a very simplified version of sharding. You have all of the other tables on different databases all coming into one. So I'll show you a quick demo of what this looks like. So I logged in here. I made a foreign database here real quick, and then I made these two tables on the foreign database, and now I'm connected back to my local database here. So when you're setting up a foreign data wrapper, essentially I'm just using the Postgres foreign data wrapper here. So I made the Postgres foreign data wrapper extension. I made the actual foreign data wrapper connection here. I'm just connecting back to localhost to the new database I made called foreign database. And then you actually have to make a user mapping so it knows what user to log in to that remote foreign data wrapper table as. And then, so I made this log entries table here. And now I go actually create a foreign table with the normal create foreign table command, but now that you can use the inherits option with the create foreign table command. And you can see it did the normal inheritance stuff, merging the column entries and stuff. So now if you look at the description of the log entries table, you can see it has two child tables now. And if you look at the description of one of those child tables, you can see it's defined as a foreign data wrapper. So that's all working. The other fun thing you can do, and along the same thing, is you can now import foreign schemas. So it's not actually importing the foreign schema and making it local. It's looking at you give it the foreign database connection that you want, and it makes all of the objects in that foreign table, or in that other remote table, foreign data wrapper tables locally. So I can show you what I mean by that here. So you can see all I did was import foreign schema. I just used that same foreign data wrapper I made before, and it made these two new tables, the FDW schema, and so if you actually look at these two here. It made those two tables that I had made on the foreign table before thing. So if you have hundreds of tables on some remote system, you could easily just import them all with one command now. I'm not quite sure. I would think views would be included on that, because I think they're viewed as tables as far as the foreign data wrapper is concerned. Yeah. So if you have any more questions about foreign data wrappers and doing things like this, there's actually a talk by Ashutosh tomorrow called Transacting with Foreign Servers. It's tomorrow at 2 p.m. in this room. So, yes? I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Do you know if it works only between Postgres SQL database, or it works for?
No, it'll work for any foreign data wrapper that you have the connection defined for.
So the extension for Rack will
The data wrapper has to implement the importation, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I would assume it's all stubs. If the stubs aren't defined, it can't hold any form schemas.
Right. Okay. All right. Another new option. This gets pretty deep into SQL flu, so it's hard to do a whole talk too much about it here. But essentially, what you used to have to require doing union alls before to get multiple grouping group by clauses with the same result set, you can now do in a single query. So I'll show you an example here. So I just made it. This is just I made this table here with a whole bunch of like how many inserts, updates, and deletes and transactions per day. It's just an example table here. So say we wanted to. So before, if we wanted to get how many the sum of all of these inserts and stuff per app application, we first do it by group by app number, and then if we wanted to get it by day, we do a separate one, and then you do a union all on these, and you'd have them both together in one in a single result. Now you can do it in one query. So you actually get the result set back like that. It's a lot more. It's tremendously more efficient than doing the union all. So if you need to do things like this, it's a lot easier now. Just have to get used to the syntax of it. There's these other things with rollup and cube. I know one of the examples I saw with cube is, say you do grouping by and you give it like column 1, column 2, column 3. You want, and then a sum on something. If, say, you wanted a sum on every possible combination of all of those group by columns in the group by, you could use something like cube, and it would go through and do every possible combination of all of those things you're trying to do group by, and you'd have all those different sums in a single query. Depez, who's follow his blog a lot, this is actually a live link if you're following on my slides. If you go to his blog post, he does a really, really long, detailed example of how to use stuff like cube and rollup, and this is where I got the other example I did from. So recommend going to his blog on this. Another one seems pretty simple, but it's actually pretty interesting update. You can actually now do subselects and updates for multiple columns. That basically sums up what it does right there. Don't have to get in too much more detail on it. See, there's now and if I don't know if people are familiar with the generate series function. It's one of those things that's very, very handy if you know about it, and now can handle numeric values. So if anybody's not familiar with what generate series does, it's like before, if you just want to do like 1 through 10, you just do generate series 1, 10, you get all your numbers back. It actually can do time as well. Most people don't know that. They're just used to using it for numbers. You can actually do it in time and give it any arbitrary increment you want there. I just did a 65-day increment for over a year. And so with the new one, you can now use decimal numbers. So I just went from 10.1 to 11.6 by 0.2 and got all those results back. So it's a very, very, very handy little function if you're trying to like make test data and you just want to fill a table with dummy data. You can do 1 to 1,000,000 and you have a 1,000,000 row table in one command. I found this pretty handy. I always had to go do weird things to get this to actually work before. Now if you use ArrayAg, you can now actually pass arrays to ArrayAg. Would have thought that would have worked before, but apparently it wasn't working before. And there's actually an array. There's an array function if you just want to take a bunch of values and make an array out of them. You can now pass arrays into that, and you'll get a multi-dimensional array back out. So pretty handy. This is a really handy new function or SQL syntax for if you have to deal with a lot of contention in your tables. So it's easy to show by demo here. Actually, I have to do a little trick here. So let's have a plain table here with 100 rows in it. It's just got some demo data. There's the first 10 rows there. So say you do something, what you do is select for update. So I just did a select from jobs, and I got just one row, but I did 4 updates. So now I'm in a transaction. I did a begin. So that row is now locked if something else tries to come along and look at that. Let's see. So I tried to get the same row before. I also tried to do a for update and did the no wait clause. Otherwise, if I didn't put the no wait on, if I would have run that command, it just would have sat there and wait forever. Otherwise, so with no wait, it just skipped right over it. But now if you do skip blocked, so this new option here at the end, you can see it actually. Oops. You got ID 47, priority 98 over here, and it got a different row back here. ID, it just got the next one, 56, 97. So now if I start up another session and do it again, now I just got the next one, 99, 97. So now if I go back to commit, now I get back the other row I got before because that transaction's open now. So makes it really handy for more cleanly handling when you have a lot of contention going on and you need to use for update. Oops. There's been some more work on reducing lock levels for a lot of operations. The biggest one actually on here is, to me, is this last one for adding foreign keys. Typically when you'd add a foreign key on a table, you'd actually have that table locked completely, no writes or reads. That's now been changed to share row exclusive lock, which actually means it allows reads but blocks writes. So now you can add foreign keys and still be able to query the table. Writes are blocked, but you can still query the table for the existing values. So, and for these other ones for create trigger, enable trigger, they typically work pretty quick already, but now it's even less intrusive. Another new type of index called a block range index. They're also called min-max indexes. Typically in a B-tree index, there's one for every value in the table. There's one entry in the index. For this new one, every data block in Postgres there's a heap page. So it stores the upper and lower bounds of that heap page, and that's what the index entry is. You can configure how many heap pages you want to contribute to that upper and lower bound, and that'll adjust the size of the Brin index. If you look at these, the size is significantly smaller than a regular index, and they're also created much faster, and if you have to update the index, it's much faster. This comes with some performance penalties, though, for most indexes. If you have statically ordered data that doesn't change very often, this can help a lot and make your indexes a lot smaller. But if your data is updating and changing a lot, you probably actually see a performance decrease. I found a really, really good example on this blog called Python Sweetness. He actually goes through and explains how normal B-tree indexes work and the entries work, and he goes through a detailed explanation of how the Brin indexes actually work as far as using the boundaries on the heap pages and how you can adjust them. So recommend going there if this is something you're curious about. For those that don't know what an index-only scan is, if the values, if you're doing a query like a select count or something like that, and the actual values actually exist on the index, and they don't actually have to go to the table to get them. I think it was back in 9.2 they added that feature for B-tree indexes. It'll actually not have to go to the source table. You can just get the data right from the index, and it's tremendously faster. They're starting to add that to gist indexes now. So for things like PostGIS, which usually have tremendously large amounts of data in them, this can make queries against PostGIS a lot faster. It's still limited. It's only on box and point data types right now, but hopefully they'll get more in there. Let's see. Speaking of indexes, now there's a simple command if you would just want to reindex an entire schema. This, like a typical reindex, this will block everything that's in there and the one's indexing, but if you just want to do that really fast, there's a convenient command for it right now. And Peter Gagan talked to me about this. I would have completely looked over this. I didn't even realize it was as significant a feature as it was. There's been some significant improvement in sorting speeds, and this affects creating indexes, but it also, if you ever look at your explain plan, you see a lot of sorting and stuff in there. If you have text and numeric data, which is usually the majority of people's data now, you can see a tremendous speed up in query speeds. So if you ever talk to Peter, you know what I mean by exhaustive explanation. This is an extremely complex feature. The notion behind it is something called Radiated Keys. He has a very long explanation of what that is and how it works. So I'd suggest you go there. This is one of those features that most people looking through the patch notes and stuff would completely overlook because it sounds really complicated and they don't know, but this is actually a pretty significant improvement for query performance overall. So. If anybody uses the unlog feature, you can now turn that off and on dynamically on tables. Just be aware it does a complete rewrite on the table, so if you have a really large table, this will lock it for that whole time and rewrite the whole thing. But now you can dynamically turn that off and on. If you have like a table you want to turn into this, makes it really easy. The vacuum DB binary command. This isn't like the vacuum command in the database. This is the binary command outside the database. Now it has a jobs option, and it'll do multiple connections to the database to try to speed up your vacuums and analyzes. And very handily, it starts with the largest table and goes down from there. So just be careful in using up all your connections and overwhelming your I/O. Just be careful with it. But it's a very handy feature. This one is pretty handy feature. I never actually used this option before, so I learned about this while I was making these slides. There's a new option to PG XLog dump. XLog dump kind of gives you a summary of what's in the wall files. So actually I have to go out to a command line here because I'll try to make it bigger too. I can make this bigger. So So this is basically, can everybody read that? Or can they make it bigger? What's that? So you just give it the pgxlog dump command, the stats command there, and you give it the name of an XLog file. You can actually give it a starting one and an ending one, and it'll give you the summary of the data for the whole thing. So, oops. My resolution went down here, but you can see these are all the different services in Postgres. So they're the resource managers. So you can see the options there. The handy one, the one I found that was handy though, is if you give it this stats equal record option. It'll actually give you what is in there as far as inserts, updates, deletes, vacuums, all of that kind of information. So if you're wondering what's causing your XLogs folder to blow up, like what's running, and you can't get into the database to see, you can go run this command on the XLog files or on the WAL files in the XLogs folder, and get an idea of what it actually is causing all your problems. Another handy feature, most people use a tool that compresses their WAL files for them already. Don't stop using that, but you can, if you don't have the option to do that, you can have Postgres try to pay a little bit of CPU cost for saving I/O and disk space and have them compress the WAL files for you. So. The 9.4 introduced the alter system command, where you can actually change the PostgreSQL.conf options from within the database itself. If you go ahead and do that, if you look in the data directory or wherever the PostgreSQL.conf directory, there's a secondary one that keeps track of all these. So if you use this command to change the option and you want to change it back and you weren't sure where it was before, or you just want to change everything back to the way it was, you can use all. So if you change the work mem setting and you want to change it back to what you originally had it before in the original PostgreSQL.conf, or just the default value if you didn't set it before, you have this command available to you now. For anybody that runs slaves and does failover and point-in-time recovery, this is a new option in the recovery.conf file. So you can give it one of three options, either pause, promote, or shut down. So if you're bringing up a slave or failing over or trying to do point-in-time recovery, and you give it some options, you want to tell it specifically what you want it to do when it gets to the end of recovery. Promote will obviously make it your actual new master standalone database. Shut down will turn it off. Pause is handy if you're trying to see if the database is actually where you want it to be for recovery. So you could set this option in the recovery.conf, start your backup, restoring your backup, and have it pause when it gets to the end, and then or whatever your recovery target is, and then go in there and check and see what it is. If it's not what you want, you can go in and adjust your recovery target options, and then you can use the replay resume and continue again, and you can have it pause again and just keep doing that.
You will have to restart in between though, because
oh really?
The target is not reloaded at runtime, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you have to reread the. Yep. This is another new option. This is really handy for people that run a lot of clusters on the same system. It's a new PostgreSQL.conf option called cluster name. So I'll show you exactly what I mean by this. So right now, if I do, you can see all the Postgres processes that are running here right now. And if you had multiple clusters running, the only thing that would really identify what this is would be kind of this first one up here. But you don't really know if that's which one of these other processes is associated with that one. So you can do a little restart here. Yeah, my little handy commands. So now you can see I set the cluster name to PG95 Live. So now it has, you can easily identify which of the background workers are associated with which cluster. Yes?
Is that used by a connection string at all? In other words, can you select the cluster name when connecting?
I'm not sure about that. I don't think so. I'm not sure about that though.
That's what I was asking. In other words, could multiple clusters have the same port is what I'm asking.
Could multiple clusters have the same port?
Yeah, that's where that would lead. In other words,
Oh no, they wouldn't be able to have the same port. No. So, this is another nice little feature in there. If you've ever done you have backups stored and you try to feed show you what happens here. Oops. Where's my? So just stop. So I'm just going to make a dump file here of my, oops. Using the 9.4 binary to make the PG dump, so I can actually use the PG restore 9.4 PG restore binary or PSQL binary. So if you have ever done a PG restore and then tried to use PSQL to restore that, oops, you get crap like that, and you have no idea what was wrong. So if you actually do it with the 9.5 binary, actually let me get that up at the top there. You get that nice little handy feedback. Maybe you can't see that here. It's, so it just tells you this is use PG restore, not PSQL. That's the last of the features that I know that are confirmed and committed in there right now. One neat feature I saw that Haas did a blog post about that is hopefully going to make it in, but nope, okay. So not possibly right now, but parallel sequential scans. He actually has a talk dedicated, him and Amit have a talk dedicated to this tomorrow at 1 p.m. if you want to go hear more about it. This sounds like it's hinting at hopefully getting towards parallelized queries at some point, but
We're going to make it a 9.6.
9.6, okay. All right.
What about partition tables?
What's that?
What about partition tables? Still do separate things.
That's a great question, which we can talk about.
So there's still have some. That's the end of my talk here. I just want to say, or actually, how can you help getting this stuff out? Every year we have there's always Commit Fest going on. Right now there's the 2015-06 Commit Fest going on right now. There's a website you can go to. The Commit Fest schedule for 9.6 has been released, so hopefully get feature freeze for 9.6 around April of next year. And of course, how can you help is there's the Git repo, you can go download, install it, compile it, test it out, just like I did here. And also, thanks to these people, Planet Postgres is a basically Postgres news feed. If you want to keep up on new features and people's blog posts and stuff that are out there, it's a great resource. You can subscribe to it and get emails and stuff about it. Thanks to Magnus for doing this talk so I could steal it. And the Hubert DePez and Michael Paquier for their their series that they do on their blogs for features. Helps a lot. And if you're curious how I made this presentation, it's software called Reveal.js. Been finding it pretty handy. So still have some time left. If there's anybody here that has another feature that they, like any developers here, with any other features that you want to share with people that are coming out that I didn't cover? Guess not. Okay. Thank you. Oh, there was a question. Yeah.